Hi, my name's Craig. I'm the technical manager for QNAP UK. Today I wanted to cover off the malware that's affecting some QNAPs, which is called QSnatch. I think it's also known as some other names, but we'll call it QSnatch for the purposes of this video. Today I'm going to go through the different steps that you can take to protect your NAS from getting QSnatch in the first place. And also what you would do is largely the same if you did have QSnatch on your NAS. The same steps should also remove it as well. If you did have any difficulty with any of these steps, you can of course contact our technical support teams and they will talk you through the steps, or perhaps do them for you if you wanted to enable some remote access. We have issued some security advisories on this, which covers most of the steps that I'm going to cover today. These are available on our website. One thing I would highly recommend is at the very bottom of our advisories, on every page of every advisory, is a option to subscribe to the security newsletters, so that if we do introduce any new advisories, you'll be the first to hear about them on the mailing list there. So there's an option down there, so please do subscribe to those. So one thing I did want to cover today is all the different steps that you can go through to remove or protect yourself from the QSnatch malware. The first and foremost, most important thing you can do is to install the very latest version of the firmware for your NAS. Today I actually wanted to do a demonstration with QSnatch on an infected NAS on a private network so that it wouldn't affect anything else. But actually it's quite hard for me to on purpose catch QSnatch. I would have to have a firmware that is more than 1.5 years old. I would have to be using things like default passwords and have a lot of services running on my NAS and open to the outside world that I probably wouldn't be using anyway. So this is going to take you through either disabling those unused services, checking if they are enabled or not, and also how to do the firmware updates. So one of the downsides, if you do have the QSnatch malware on your NAS, is that it actually never lets your NAS check for a firmware update automatically. So if I was to come here into the control panel of the NAS, we do have a firmware update section. Within the firmware update, we have a check for update button, which will go off and check and let you know if there's a new firmware. The QSnatch malware will prevent that from working properly in most cases. So what you can do is you can go to the download center for your product. So if you're ever on the QNAP website, if you hover over the support section, you can go down to download center and it will take you to this page where you can simply select the categories to find your exact NAS model, and you can download the actual firmware file directly from this page. It's under the operating system tab there at the top, the first one that will come up. Once you've downloaded that file, you can go to the NAS and you can go to the firmware update tab within the firmware update section of control panel, and you will be able to browse to your local file system on your machine so that you can do the update manually, even if the auto check is not working. So simply doing this update may well fix the problem, may well get rid of the QSnatch malware. If it doesn't, another thing that we have prepared is a free tool. So if you go into the App Center on any QNAP NAS, you must have at least QTS 4.2 for malware remover. And we also have another piece of software called the Security Counselor, which must be on QTS 4.3.5 or higher. But both of these options are available in the QTS Essentials tab. So when you're in QTS Essentials, you can scroll through and find Malware Remover. So you can click to install Malware Remover. It's a simple single click and it will auto run once it's installed. And you can also scroll down and find Security Counselor and do a single click install on that. It can ask you where you want to install it. So I'm just going to click OK there. So now it's going to go off and install those two separate applications, which are effectively two protection tools for your NAS. So if you don't have QSnatch on your NAS at the moment, it's going to stop you getting it. If you did have it on it, it should be able to remove it with a very simple scan and remove function that it's going to do. So it's very easy to install those two apps. And again, they are both free, both very easy, very quick to install straight on the NAS. So there we've got Malware Remover installed already. If I click open, just a little confirmation you've got to do, and then you can get to choose start scan immediately, or you can have it run on a schedule. So here it says the last scan was 20 seconds ago when it first installed, so I know this NAS is all protected and there's no problems on it. We also do have the Security Counselor, which is also installed in the background. So if I was to open that, just another confirmation of the analytics. So it's going to set up a little wizard so that it'll talk you through the different options. But ultimately, this is going to talk you through the different options that you can have on your QNAP. So you can pick different options. You can tell it to run a scan now. So it's advised to be able to run these tools just to keep your NAS safe and secure as well. Also, make sure that all of your QNAP apps that are installed on the App Center, make sure that those are kept as up-to-date as possible. So each time you log into your QNAP interface here, it will pop up at the bottom right corner telling you that updates are available for your apps, so long as your NAS is online. And then it's going to go off and do the automatic updates for the apps if you allow it to. Some extra steps that you can do is changing the passwords on your NAS. So most importantly would be the admin user. You can do that in the control panel of your NAS and then going to the users section under the privilege heading. So in the users section, you'll see that next to each username that you've got, there's going to be a little key logo there. So if you were to click on the key logo, it's going to allow you to change the password for either other users on your NAS, or you can even change the admin user's password there as well. For the admin one, you must type in the old password before you can change it. So it's very important to get those passwords changed. You can also change your QNAP ID password. To change your QNAP ID password, there's an extra step you have to do there. Is you have to go to account.qnap.com. When you log into your account at the QNAP.com website there's an option on the left for security. When you go to security, there's an option to change the password. So you can go in here and change that password directly on that screen. Another option that you can do is remove unknown or suspicious accounts. So if you did notice that in your user list you had some accounts there that you didn't recognize, get rid of those immediately. You don't need them there. Some other functions that we've got on the NAS is some extra services that if you're not using them, we would recommend that you would disable them. So one of those ones would be the Telnet and SSH. So if you don't need to use these services on your NAS, make sure that these two options are disabled. Some extra options would be under the applications heading as well. Things like the web server and SQL server. If you're not using those functions, just simply come in here and either untick the box if it's already enabled, or in the case of SQL server here, it's not enabled, it will already be unticked. So it would be very important to make sure things like those are definitely disabled. We can also recommend that you would stop using the default port numbers. I know in some cases it's important for us to have default ports and default settings so that you can connect to the NAS in the first place, but these are all settings that you can change. We have made it a requirement in later firmwares that there is no default password of admin anymore. So as soon as you set up your NAS for the first time, it will recommend that you set a password straight away. It will not actually let you continue with the setup unless you type in your own password. And if you try to type the password as admin, it will not allow that. So that the default password that was associated with this malware is effectively a banned password on the QNAP NAS, so that you can't accidentally set yourself up to be vulnerable for this type of from malware on the QNAP. So by default, here on the very first screen within the control panel, under General and System General Settings, we've got all the ports that your QNAP largely uses. So the system port is 8080, and we've also got a secure port of 443. At any point you want, you can change these ports to something else. So for example, if you didn't want the system port to be 8080, you could just type it as 50 and click apply, and it would use that port from now on, so that you can get into these management screens if you wanted to. Some extra functions would be within My QNAP Cloud. So if you do have My QNAP Cloud loaded, there are some extra options on here like auto router configuration. This is what automatically opens up ports. So it's a feature of many routers out there called UPnP, Universal Plug and Play, that if you have an application running on your NAS, the NAS can ask the router to automatically open the ports to the NAS for that service or application. You can disable that, and it's going to leave your NAS much more secure, where you would have to open up the ports manually for any service that you wanted to access yourself. So that's largely all the steps that you can do through the interface and through the account.qnap.com, so that you can go in and change passwords, users, making sure that you've only got your essential services running on the QNAP that you need to. One other area I will point out, just to show you that we are trying to help customers really protect their devices, is we do have a product support status section on our website, where if I go to the very top of the page, we can see we've got an OS and application updates and maintenance. So this is the main OS updates. And for a lot of these, the date is 1 or 2 years in the future, even if the product is end of life already. And at the right, we do have a technical support and security update section. So you will still get something like a firmware update, but it's just really for security fixes. So if I pick an older product here, like the TS469 Pro, if I look here, it actually stopped receiving firmware updates, full firmware updates with new features and new services back in March 2018. But we are still committed to supplying and providing security updates all the way up to December 2020. And if I go to the download center for the TS469 Pro, we are still releasing security updates. So the latest firmware that was available for that was available less than a month ago from filming this. And when you go into the remarks and scroll to the bottom, you can see the fixes that it's done. So we're always fixing any known security issues that we either discover or are informed about. We're always trying to get on top of those, even for products that have been end of life for 4-5 years. So we're still providing those updates for the users completely for free. Just to cover off the security advisory. So everything I've talked about here is largely available in the security advisory for this. We have released a couple of press releases over the last sort of year and a bit, talking about the different ways of getting this malware off your NAS. So here's a little timeline that we have. So we were informed of the QSnatch vulnerability from October 25th, 2019. We started releasing the extra bits of software like malware remover on November 1st. So very quick response there. We did a press release to inform the public within a week of that, of coming up with a solution to the problem. And we've been updating several times the advisory that's on our website to make sure it contains the most relevant information regarding this malware. And also, we're also emailing possibly affected users to recommend an immediate update where possible. Our technical support team generally, who are looking into fixing this for some customers that may get in touch with us, the common problem is that they're all running firmwares that are very, very old. They haven't been updating to new firmwares. Now, this could be because they were infected with QSnatch and weren't getting the updates, or simply through negligence. They haven't been doing it on their own part. But the most important thing was the first point I made, is make sure that your QNAP firmware is as up-to-date as possible. So if you see something popping up on your QNAP that a new firmware is available, we would always recommend that you get that installed. It's not just maybe new features or new services in that firmware update for your QNAP. Quite often in each update there will be a lot of security fixes that go with it, just to keep your data that will be stored on the QNAP as safe as possible. Please check the description below this video. There's going to be effectively a text version of everything I've just said, and there's also going to be the link so that you can sign up to the security updates if you want to be kept informed about those going forward for any new security advisories that we may have. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.